Hello guys, my name is Jack, and for those of you that don't know me, I am a current au pair in London, and I make YouTube videos and vlogs about au pair life and just documenting my time that I'm spending as an au pair. Hello, welcome to this new video. I thought I would film a video. It is currently raining outside. I am also currently having to quarantine for 2 weeks because I went on a little trip, and while I was on the trip the travel restrictions changed and now I have to self-quarantine for 2 weeks, which is okay. My host family is currently away on holiday. They are actually coming back today. I don't know when they could pull up right now. I don't know when they'll get here, but I'm quarantining, I'm bored, it's raining outside, not that I can go anywhere anyway, so I thought I would film a YouTube video. For anyone that is new or doesn't know, my name's Jacqueline. I am an au pair in London, like I said earlier, and I was also an au pair last year in Berlin. So I've been an au pair for 2 years. Maybe next year I'll also be an au pair again. I don't know, I haven't thought that far ahead. I know I make YouTube videos. I decided to make YouTube videos to be able to document my au pair experience and also to possibly be able to help other au pairs, because I found it frustrating not being able to find vlogs and videos about au pairing when I was researching and looking into becoming an au pair. So for this video, I thought I would do 8 tips that I have for any people that are thinking of becoming au pairs or are looking for host families or haven't left for their host country yet. Just tips for au pairs. Hopefully they are helpful. Hopefully they make sense, and yeah. Also, if you see me looking down during this video, I have notes. So if you see me looking down, I'm looking at my notes so that I don't. My first tip that I would have for au pairs when they're looking for a host family is to know what you want to have from your experience as an au pair. For example, maybe you really want to learn the language of the country that you are going to, or maybe you want to gain a second family in another country. Figure out what you want from your au pair year and then find a family that will help you achieve that. For example, for me, when I was in Berlin last year, it wasn't so important for me to learn German. Yes, I wanted to learn German and I did work hard trying to learn German. But it wasn't important for me that I became fluent in German by the end of my year there. The important thing for me last year and this year was to find a host family that would treat me like part of their family. I really wanted to have that feeling of being part of a family and having a good relationship with my host family. I focused on trying to find a family that would give me that would treat me like I'm part of their family. Luckily, both in Berlin and in London, I've found that. But for some people, it might not be so important to find a family that treats them like their family. It might be more important that they find a family that will just speak French or German or Italian or whatever language, or English with them, so that they can improve their language skills. And I think it's important to know what you want and find a family that is going to help you reach your goal of what you want from your au pair year. My second tip is know what you are and are not willing to compromise on. I decided to au pair through an agency, and one of the questions that they asked me when I was looking for host families is, what is your ideal host family? And I think that's a good question, because then you can paint a picture in your mind about what sort of family you're willing to live with and where and what sort of living situation and etc. But even though I think it's important to visualize what sort of family you want, I think it's also important to realize that you probably won't get your perfect family. You'll probably have to compromise on some things. So I think it's good knowing which things you don't want to compromise on. For example, if you really want to be in London, you don't want to be in Birmingham or Manchester or somewhere else in the UK, then that would be something that you wouldn't compromise on. For example, I was willing to compromise on the ages of the, or not compromise, but I wasn't so set on which age group I would look after. Last year I was looking after under 5-year-olds. This year all my kids are over the age of 7. So for me, the age wasn't that important. The location wasn't that important. The important thing for me was that I got along with my host family. Basically, what I'm trying to say is know what you do and don't want. It kind of goes along with tip number 1, but know what you are willing to compromise on and what you aren't willing to compromise. Okay, so tip number 3 for me is buy a weekly planner. I brought this in Germany last year, and I also had another one that I brought from New Zealand with me to Germany. It's so useful, especially if you have older host kids that have lots of sport and after school activities, or if your au pair schedule isn't set and your hours sort of change every week. Last year, having a weekly planner was so helpful because my au pair schedule didn't stay the same each week. Every single Sunday, me and my host parents would sit down and we would go over with what their work schedule was and what plans I had, and we would work out, okay, on this day you're going to pick the kids up, but we will take them to Kita, and on this day could you have them for 2 hours in the afternoon, but the day after you don't have to have them in the afternoon at all. And it was always changing, so this was really, really important so that I knew what I had to do each day. And this year it's so important, or this year it would have been so important. It hasn't been that important this year, but because of coronavirus, but this year it would have been so important because my host kids have lots of after school activities and sports, usually if sports is happening and if school was on, but it's not anymore, so it hasn't been needed so much this year. But usually I would have used this to keep track of what all my host kids were doing after school and what sports they had and where they were, so that I didn't forget that the middle child had soccer practice and then I was wondering where he was and freaking out. Like, basically, get a weekly planner. It will help you so much. Tip number 4 is to make a budget for yourself. We all know that au pairs don't get paid a lot, which is fine because we get board and we get food and sometimes we get insurance paid or flights paid or all this other stuff. But we only get a small amount of money to spend for ourselves. So that makes budgeting really important. Last year, I didn't make a budget for myself. I also only got paid once a month last year, and I hated that so much, but that's normal in Germany. It is so important to budget. Last year I didn't budget, and I would have money for the first 2 weeks of the month, and then for the last 2 weeks I'd have like barely any money, and that sucked. This year I've sort of been budgeting a bit. It's a bit different now because I get paid once a week, so it's easier to sort of budget my spending and stuff. But I've started making little budgets for myself. So each week I have in my bank account, I have little, they're called vaults, and I have a vault for savings and a vault for travel and a vault for credit because I pay for my own phone credit, and I have a vault for Disney because I was planning on going on a Disney trip at the end of this year, but I ended up going earlier because I got tickets for Disneyland for my birthday. But I have a vault for Disney because now I'll go next year on another Disney trip, and I just have different vaults, and each month I plan to put certain amounts of money into each vault, and then I plan what I'm going to use the leftover money for, whether that's going into London, whether that's going to a museum, whether that's buying food, whether that's paying for Spotify. I try to budget it every week, and it's been so much better than last year. I usually end up having like a bit of leftover extra money to spend on getting ice cream or milkshakes or whatever snack food I want for myself for that week. So try and make a budget. It will make your life so much easier. Tip number 5 is don't be afraid to say no to host families when you're matching. I always hated the idea of saying no to host families. I was actually really lucky, and both times I au paired, I matched with the first families that I talked to. That usually doesn't happen, and I don't recommend doing that. I recommend talking to lots of host families, but it just so happened that both times the first families that contacted me were really good families and were a good match for me. If the family isn't a right fit for you for whatever reason, maybe they need you to work more than you would like to work, or maybe they've more kids than you're comfortable looking after, or something like that, it's important that you say no to host families that aren't a good fit. And it's important that you don't just ignore the host family, that you actually write to the host family and say, sorry, say something like, sorry, I don't think we'll be a good fit, but I hope you find an au pair. Because my current host family that I am with now in London, they've had au pairs for years, and they were telling me when I first arrived that it's crazy how many au pairs just never reply to them, because they don't want to say no to them, but they obviously don't want to say yes, so they just don't reply. And I was really shocked at that, actually. So that's my 5th tip. If you don't want to go with a host family, say no. My tip number 6 is don't pack too much. Now, if you have watched my what I packed for my year abroad, or my au pair year video, I don't know what I've titled it yet, you know that I said in that video that I am bad at packing and I always pack too much. But this tip is don't pack too much. And I know that that's hard because you think, oh, I need this. What if I need this? What if I need this? But you accumulate so much stuff. I've been in London for 5 months now, and it's been 5 months of lockdown. So I haven't even been able to go shopping, really. I've only been able to order things online if I needed to. And I've already accumulated so much stuff. And yeah, it's just crazy how much stuff you accumulate. So really try not to pack too much. Otherwise, you're going to have problems when you're going home and you can't fit everything in your suitcase. Like I had last year, my host family from last year actually sent some of my stuff to my host family in London once I had arrived there, so that because I just didn't have space in my suitcase for it all. So try not to overpack. My 7th tip is to be firm with your boundaries. Now, this is with both your host kids and your host family. So yeah, it's just good to set up boundaries. I do this mainly with the kids, because kids don't always understand when you need your time, or when you don't want to do something, or they don't always understand certain things. So I found it really important, especially last year, because both my host kids were under the age of 5. It's really important to set boundaries and rules for your host kids so that they know what to expect when. And my last tip is make sure you get to know your local area as well as the big city. So both times that I've au paired, I've been lucky to be in huge, beautiful, amazing cities. I was in Berlin last year, I'm in London this year. And it can be so easy to just focus on getting to know the city and going to see everything in the city. But I think it's so important and so cool to learn your local little town area as well. Like last year we had a really cool market twice a week, a couple of streets down from us, and it was so cool to go there sometimes with my host parents and get food and stuff like that. And I found lots of walking trails last year in the forest. Even this year I found lots of walking trails because of coronavirus. I just find it so cool to also get to know your local area as well as getting to know the big city, because it can be quite easy to get lost in the city but then not know your way around your local area. So that's all I have for this video. I hope it was helpful somehow. If you have any tips for any au pairs that are matching or thinking about becoming au pairs or haven't gotten to their host country yet or whatever, if you just have any tips for au pairs, make sure you comment them down below, and also make sure you subscribe to my channel so that you can check out my weekly vlogs and all my travel videos, hopefully once coronavirus settles down a bit more. And yeah, I would love to have you subscribe. Yeah, hopefully I'll see you next week for a new video. So yeah, see you next week.